The sun was bleeding orange across the cracked asphalt of 47th Street when the roar of 5 Harleys cut through the evening haze like a war cry. Jax Reaper Moreno, president of the Hemidnites Motorcycle Club, rode point, his leather vest heavy with patches earned in blood and loyalty. Behind him, his brothers, Tank, Rico, Sledge, and the prospect they called Kid, thundered in perfect formation, exhaust pipes spitting fire. They were coming back from a charity run, pockets lighter but hearts heavier after handing over 20 grand to the children's hospital. Jax's knuckles were still raw from gripping the bars too tight. The image of a little girl with no hair clutching a teddy bear had burned itself behind his eyes. Then he saw it. A city cop, badge glinting like a knife, had a homeless man pinned against the chain-link fence outside the abandoned textile mill. The officer's palm cracked across the man's weathered face so hard the sound ricocheted off the brick walls. The homeless man, gray beard matted with days of street grime, coat held together by safety pins, crumpled but didn't cry out. Something ancient and volcanic erupted inside Jax's chest. He killed the engine mid-block, boots hitting pavement before the echo of the slap faded. His brothers rolled to a stop behind him, a wall of black leather and tattooed menace. The cop spun, hand instinctively dropping to his holster. Jax's shadow swallowed the officer whole. If you believe that kindness can rewrite a man's past and that second chances are the only currency that still matters, smash that like button, drop a comment about the last time you chose mercy over muscle, share this with someone who needs to remember humanity isn't dead, and subscribe so we keep telling stories that matter. The cop's nameplate read Officer D. Harlan. Mid-30s, buzz cut, the kind of posture drilled into rookies who still thought the badge made them bulletproof. His eyes flicked from Jax's president patch to the skull with crossed pistons stitched above the heart, then to the 4 silent giants flanking their leader. Harlan's fingers twitched near the grip of his Glock. Jax didn't flinch. He took one deliberate step forward, the silver chain on his wallet clinking like a warning bell. The homeless man. Jax caught the name stitched in faded thread on a military surplus jacket. Sergeant E. Ramirez. Tried to push himself upright, blood trickling from a split lip. Jax's gaze locked on that name tape and something inside him fractured. His own father had worn dog tags once, before the bottle and the streets swallowed him whole. Harlan barked, "Back on your bikes, this is police business." Jax's voice came low, almost tender, the way a wolf speaks before it tears out a throat. Police business doesn't include beating on veterans who already lost everything once. Harlan's face flushed crimson, the radio on his shoulder crackled with distant chatter. A crowd was forming. Phones up, live streams glowing. Jax felt the weight of every lens like crosshairs. He could end this in 3 seconds, snap the cuffs off Harlan's belt and leave him eating asphalt, but the little girl's teddy bear flashed in his mind again. Violence was easy. Restraint was the blade that cut deepest. Tank shifted behind him, a mountain ready to avalanche, but Jax lifted 2 fingers, hold. He crouched beside Ramirez, the stink of urine and despair thick enough to chew. The old sergeant's eyes were milky with cataracts and something darker, shame maybe, or the ghost of orders he could no longer follow. Jax peeled off his riding gloves, revealing knuckles scarred from county fair boxing rings and prison yard brawls, and offered a hand calloused by both mercy and murder. Ramirez stared at it like it might bite, then gripped it with surprising strength. Jax pulled him upright, steadying him against the fence. Harlan started forward, nightstick rising, but Rico, 6'4" of former Marine sniper, stepped in, silent, immovable. The cop froze. Jax never took his eyes off Ramirez. "You eat today, Sarge." The old man shook his head, ashamed. Jax reached into his vest, pulled out a roll of hundreds held by a rubber band, peeled off 5 bills, and pressed them into Ramirez's trembling palm. "That's for a hot meal and a room with a lock. Tomorrow you come find me at the clubhouse. We take care of our own." Harlan sputtered. "You can't." Jax finally turned, voice dropping to a register that made grown men check their exits. I just did. The dash cam footage hit the precinct like a pipe bomb. By midnight, the video, Jax's massive frame shielding Ramirez while Harlan's slap replayed in slow motion, racked up 2 million views. Hashtags erupted. Hashtag Hem at Nights, hashtag Cop vs Biker, hashtag Veteran Strong. Inside the station, Captain Elena Morales watched the clip on loop, coffee growing cold. She'd grown up 2 blocks from the mill, back when it still employed half the neighborhood. She knew the Knights weren't Boy Scouts. They ran protection for bars, smuggled cigarettes up from Mexico, and every 4th of July they closed the highway for a burnout that left rubber scars a mile long. But she also knew Ramirez. He'd been her father's spotter in Fallujah. The same man who once carried her dad out of a burning Humvee now slept under newspapers. Morales felt the walls of protocol crumbling. Harlan sat across from her, uniform rumpled, explaining how the vagrant had resisted a lawful order to move along. Morales let him talk himself hoarse, then slid a suspension notice across the desk. 2 weeks, no pay. And you're riding a desk until IA finishes tearing you apart. Harlan's mouth opened, closed. For the first time, fear flickered behind the bravado. Jax didn't sleep. He sat on the roof of the clubhouse, a squat cinder block fortress ringed by razor wire and murals of St. Michael trampling demons. The desert wind carried the smell of creosote and distant rain. Below, the clubhouse bar thumped with Metallica and pool balls, but up here the only sound was his own heartbeat. He kept replaying the moment Ramirez's fingers closed around the money, how the old man's eyes had filled, not with gratitude, but recognition. Like he'd been waiting decades for someone to see the soldier still buried under the ruin. Jax's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Sarge is at the mission on 5th. Won't take the bed you paid for. Says he doesn't deserve it. Jax was already swinging a leg over his bike. The mission smelled of bleach and boiled cabbage. Sister Agnes, a nun built like a linebacker, met him at the door. He's in the courtyard. Keeps muttering about friendly fire. Jax found Ramirez on a bench, staring at a cracked fountain where goldfish swam in circles. The old man's new clothes, courtesy of the mission's donation bin, hung loose on a frame that had once carried 80 pounds of gear through Helmand Province. Jax sat without asking. For a long time neither spoke. Finally Ramirez whispered, "I still smell the cordite. Every night." Jax nodded. He knew that smell. It lived in his own nightmares from a different war. He reached into his cut, pulled out a challenge coin, the knight's crest on one side, a tiny silver dog tag on the other engraved with his father's name. He pressed it into Ramirez's hand. "My old man came back from Panama in a box. This kept me from following him into the ground. You carry it now." Ramirez closed his fist around the coin like it was the only solid thing left in the world. Word spread through the club like wildfire. Tank, who'd lost a brother to an IED, started a GoFundMe titled, Sarge's Second Tour. Rico, silent as ever, showed up with a duffel of new boots and a prepaid phone. Sledge hacked the VA website and scheduled Ramirez for every benefit he'd been too proud to claim. Even Kid, barely 20 and still earning his bottom rocker, spent his nights driving the streets looking for other vets sleeping in doorways. The clubhouse transformed. The pool table became a clothing drive. The bar stocked Ensure instead of Jack. Jax watched it happen, stunned. He'd spent 15 years building a family forged in rebellion. Now that same family was building something softer, stronger. Captain Morales arrived unannounced on a Tuesday. Cruiser parked 2 blocks away so the uniforms wouldn't spook anyone. She wore plain clothes, jeans, blazer, badge clipped inside her waistband. Jax met her at the gate, arms crossed. The courtyard behind him bustled. Veterans in folding chairs, club prospects serving chili, Ramirez at the center holding court with stories that made grown men cry into their bowls. Morales removed her sunglasses. "I came to apologize. And to ask for help." Jax raised an eyebrow. She continued, Harlan's suspension is the easy part. The system that let him think slapping a vet was Tuesday is the cancer. I want to start a outreach unit. Cops and knights riding together, finding guys like Ramirez before they fall through every crack. You in? Jax studied her face, saw the same exhaustion he carried. He extended a hand scarred by brass knuckles and grace. Ride along starts Friday. Bring coffee. The first joint patrol was chaos wrapped in hope. Harlan, forced to participate as penance, rode in the back of a knight's van, face pale as they rolled up on a vet otting behind a dumpster. Jax performed CPR while Morales radioed for Narcan. Harlan held the kid's hand until the ambulance screamed in. Something shifted in the cop's eyes that night. Recognition that the line between protector and perpetrator was thinner than Kevlar. By the third week, Harlan was buying breakfast burritos with his own money. By the sixth, he was teaching self-defense classes in the clubhouse basement. Ramirez moved into a studio apartment above the club's auto shop, rent paid by poker-run proceeds. He still woke screaming some nights, but now Tank slept on the couch with a shotgun across his lap, and the screams faded faster. Jax visited every evening, bringing takeout and silence. One night Ramirez pulled out a photo, him and Jax's father, arms slung around each other in dress blues, grins wide enough to shame the sun. Your old man saved my life in '89. Guess the apple didn't fall far. Jax felt the coin in his pocket grow warm. The station threw a barbecue to celebrate the outreach program's first 100 veterans housed. Cops in aprons flipped burgers beside bikers in cuts. Harlan manned the grill, apron reading Kiss the Cook or Else. Ramirez carved the turkey with a ca bar older than most of the rookies. Jax stood on a picnic table, beer raised. To the ones who came home in pieces, and the ones still trying to find their way back. Glasses clinked. Cameras rolled. Somewhere a phone livestream hit 10 million views. If this story cracked open something inside you, if it reminded you that the hardest battles are fought with open hands instead of closed fists, then like this video, share it with someone carrying invisible wounds, comment below the moment that hit you hardest, and subscribe because tomorrow we tell another story about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Comment. Sarge strong, if you believe no veteran should ever sleep on concrete again. Months later, Jax rode alone at dawn, the highway unspooling like forgiveness. In his mirror, the clubhouse shrank to a matchbox, smoke curling from the chimney where Ramirez was teaching Kid how to brew coffee strong enough to wake the dead. The sun crested the mountains, painting the world gold. Jax twisted the throttle and felt the old rage loosen its grip, replaced by something lighter, purpose maybe, or peace. Behind him, a city was learning that monsters could become guardians if someone believed they still had wings beneath the scars. Ahead, the road stretched endless, and for the first time in years, Jax smiled into the wind without tasting blood.